Here's Dianne Feinstein saying if she had the votes, she'd ban all your guns. Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in case there's any doubt. We have this from the NRA, GOA, and others. They're warming up for another assault on our guns. They're coming. Let's go to that clip.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it. I could not do that. The votes weren't
all
fair.
right. So as soon as they get the votes, that is the plan.
You know, when you get with gun people, it's certainly not the way the quote-unquote progressives want to portray us, you know?
Lately, the courts have been smacking Obama around on immigration. Do you think that is done? I mean, I look at it, you look at it, a few other people look at immigration as a threat to gun rights. Do you think that one is done? As far as Obama is concerned, I kind of think it's done, but what do you think?
Well, I'm not quite certain what court decision. I mean, they have said that there's certain things, you know, aren't consistent, but the bottom line is no. He and the entire establishment are dead set on making this happen. Plus, the damage has already been done. We have tens of millions of people that are in this country who are foreign nationals, and there is a definite push on for a pathway to citizenship. Hillary is making it a centerpiece of her campaign, and this is aided and abetted by the establishment Republicans beholden to the Chamber of Commerce and the cheap labor crowd that don't particularly see that this is the suicide of the constitutional republic. Now, I've had some people say, well, wait a minute, though, but, you know, they come from a place where there is no Second Amendment, and so maybe when they get here, they'll be persuaded. And my only rejoinder to that is show me anything credible that says that that is beyond wishful thinking, because every poll, every credible poll says that we are in for multi-generations of indoctrinated, anti-gun, knee-jerk, find a home in the Democrat Party new voters. And what that means, of course, is not only a legislative supermajority, but what was Heller, what was McDonald? They were 5-4. All you need is a one-vote shift in the Supreme Court, and guess what? They have reversed decisions before. I consider this just the biggest threat to the continued legal recognition of the right to keep and bear arms that gun owners are facing, and I'm incredibly disappointed that out of our leadership, only Gun Owners of America is recognizing this and raising the alarm for gun owners. Everyone else is hiding behind a single-issue excuse.
See, what you're describing, though, is California, and that's what the nation will look like. And I saw this the other day. Did you know that 20% of all people on welfare are in California? The only people that can afford to live in California are the millionaires and the people on welfare, because there is no middle class in California.
Well, you know, and the funny thing is, all these exclusive elite 1%er progressives are kind of balking at having to do what's their terminology, their fair share of the water rationing, and they got to keep the lawns green and the pools filled, I guess.
I guess so. Where can people find David Codrea and what he does?
Well, actually, both davidcodrea.com and waronguns.com go to my The War on Guns blog. That, for now, is the repository of where I am referring people to my current work that's out there. So waronguns.com, davidcodrea.com.
In studio, I'm joined by Gene Higdon of Mean Gene's Leather. On the phone with me is I will always think of you as the Fast and Furious whistleblower, David Codrea. You were telling a story about where coming to the country. Finish that up for me.
Oh, well, we were talking about the way that progressives ignore the law when it applies to themselves. And again, whenever I say progressives, it's just like when I say assault weapon, think of quotation marks around it, because they are anything but progressive.
Right.
And we were talking about how they ignore laws that are inconvenient to them. I brought up the example of the California drought. And if these people in California really want to, have their own water supply, there's absolutely nothing stopping them from building their own reservoir and bringing in their own water, but to take it from everyone else and then to hold up that the rest of us have to do our fair share, when you're taken from a common source through a public utility, sorry, it doesn't work that way.
I agree with you on that. And the other part is, I guess you got to figure out which is more important in California. Certain species of fish, it may be as long as your finger, or people.
Yeah, well, we can't ignore the Delta smelt, right?
Right, that's right. We can't ignore the Delta smelt. Now, also coming out of California, we saw something happen in San Francisco, where in San Francisco, apparently while, recently in 2008, we were told this was not going to be the case. But in San Francisco, you got to lock your gun up, and you can't have any hollow points. I don't remember when it was, but one of the reasons people carry hollow points is because regular rounds overpenetrate and go straight through like a 9mm high-velocity round, which is what law enforcement carries a lot of the time. They're making the switch, while in California it's illegal to own them. Are we seeing ourselves split into two Americas here?
Oh, we have been for a while. As a matter of fact, we're going to be seeing ourselves split into more than two Americas. We're going to be totally balkanized, so that while Obama is busy inserting people from name third world of country of your choice into a community that they will not readily share with the American public what their plans are, we are seeing the intentional balkanization of America. And what happened in San Francisco just shows you how perilous it is looking to the system that is controlled, where the game is rigged for any kind of true redress when it comes to the Second Amendment. You and I both know what shall not be infringed means. Your listeners all know what shall not be infringed means. How the Supreme Court can refuse to hear a case where this is clearly not just an infringement, but a denial of rights. And this also goes to show that, the left has gotten away from calling it gun control, and they want to pass it off as common sense gun safety.
Gun safety, yeah.
And again, you just raised a significant point that they have just actually made things more dangerous by requiring over-penetrating ammo. And you want to take a look at some of the California construction codes and some of the apartments and things like that. And we have things that would more than happily go through walls and fetch something that it wasn't being aimed at. And so this is just insane. The fact that they can get away with it shows how tenuous the legal recognition of our rights goes. And Bill, what this points to is, I just got into kind of a private, not really an argument, but a caution. A state gun group put out an alert where they were talking about a particular gun issue. I won't go into it or identify them right now. Their president was saying, well, no matter what it is, whether we like it or not, it's the law, and we have to obey it. And so I emailed him. I said, well, wait a minute now. What if they tell you that you have to register? What if they tell you that this is now illegal and you have to surrender? It's the law. Using what you just told all of your members, and you influenced thousands and thousands of people by what you just told them, if that's the case, you have no choice but to surrender your firearms. So much for all the Molin Lave rhetoric, so much from the my cold dead hands rhetoric, that effectively a state gun group is nullifying the Second Amendment and advising its members that this is the case. Well, what we have on the other side of things, and I understand that a group that requires access to politicians and lobbying and does good work in court cases, and I'm not putting any of that down. We need all that stuff, but we reach a point where all of that stuff has failed, and now we as individuals are left with a choice. We can either obey and surrender, or we can defy and resist and take the risks that go along with that. I'm sure there will be no small segment of the gun community that will say, well, you're a radical extremist and you're making us all look bad. And, I guess that's too bad. That's an individual choice that we all have to make. When it's the end of the day and you have been ordered to turn them in, Mr. and Mrs. America, just like Dianne Feinstein wants to do.
Just like it.
Who has the greater obligation to obey, quote unquote, the law? Us bowing to a Dianne Feinstein, or a government tasked by by the Second Amendment and by the Bill of Rights that these are off limits, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
WarOnGuns.com. That is where you can find David. You can also find him at davidcodrea.com, who I rely on a lot of times for all of the analyses that I try to bring to the forefront and everything. Let me ask you a question, David. What do you think about the kinder, gentler Second Amendment advocate? Do you think people understand that we've been off course and gone so far to the left that the new normal, the only way for us to get anywhere near where we need to go is to yank the steering wheel and go hard right 90 degrees. And that's just to get us, that's going to take a while, and that's just to get us back maybe slightly right of center.
I think that there is a time and a place for all approaches. You know, I mean, you don't get more veins in your teeth than me in terms of, you know, biting into the red meat. And yet I find the value in taking a new person shooting. One of the stories I told at the dinner I had Friday night was a friend of mine, his wife's brother was an executive from Japan who was visiting this country. He'd never fired a gun before. I took him to the range, and the guy was grinning like a kid in a candy store at the end of things. The same, we have a range up in California when I was still living there, and I ran into a new guy who was a Santa Monica progressive, and I allowed him to shoot and you know, took him through a whole gamut of things. And again, he was just absolutely enamored by it. And I said, when you get back home, tell your buddies that you know, that you shot an assault rifle with an evil NRA member and you had a great time. And so, I mean, there is the time and the place for everything. And that's why I was careful in the last segment to differentiate and say, you know what, yeah, there is the time for the lobbying of the politicians. There is the time for the using of the courts. And it's only when those doors are closed that more no-nonsense measures are required. And by that I mean, you know, where certain risks, if you defy the law, I refuse to register my semi-automatic when California required it, and told the DOJ that in front of a room full of people they were dictating the terms of surrender to, and me and two buddies, we tore up the registration cards in front of them and told them, these are the only ones you're going to get from us. That was an act of not only civil disobedience, but public defiance. And so there is the time and the place for all of these things. However, I think that the real danger sometimes comes from the gun owners who think that there is only one way to do things. And I talked about the guy who said, well, we have to obey regardless of whether we agree with it or not. And the you make us all look bad crowd. And I think that that group has to stop calling the group that has a different line in the sand extremists, because we either all have a line in the sand, and it's just we have different degrees and different triggers and thresholds that will get us to that line in the sand, or we have no line in the sand. If you have no line in the sand, I've got no use for you. If you have a different line in the sand than I do, well, you know, we all have different circumstances that influence our outlooks on things.
Mr. Higdon over here, he calls the Republicans in office right now, he calls them tactical rhinos. And we have this indifference while they propose everything under the sun, the most ridiculous stuff. And I know that it is better to try to look educated and calm and learned and everything. But just the other day, the Moms Demand Attention got out there after this shooting in Dallas with the Dallas police headquarters that got attacked, claiming that might have been due to open carry. And first of all, every time I see Shannon Watts on television, the first thing that flits in my mind is Lynette Squeaky Fromm. I feel like I'm looking at another one of the Manson girls because of that vapid, no blink, hollow-eyed, vacuous stare where they're just repeating a bunch of talking points. And I know Bloomberg pays her well, but she does it, and she does it to the degree to where it's absolutely ridiculous. You've got articles coming out. Where was it? There was an L.A. Times op-ed out there where the reason AR-15s are so popular is because they're fun to shoot. It's almost sexual. Some of this stuff that gets put out there, I mean, and I sit back and I try to be like my friend David Codrea and try to sit back and bring the intelligent argument to it and everything. And other times I'm just sitting there thinking.
Yeah, Bill, all they have really is pushing emotional buttons, because aside from that, they got nothing. So, yeah, absolutely, she's going to come out and she's going to blame Texas open carry for a lunatic who doesn't know any better than to open fire on a police station, okay? They said the same thing about concealed carry. Here's the little trick here. Everyone who is out there now complaining the sky is falling and wringing their hands and gnashing their teeth and wailing over open carry in Texas, turn around and ask them, well, what have you done to support concealed carry if you hate open carry so much? And the bottom line is they're against concealed carry too. But by just attacking the open carry, they're masking that what they're all about is incrementalism. The true goal is a monopoly of violence on the part of an unchallengeable state and a disarmed citizen population. So that's the true goal. Everything else is smoke and mirrors to get there. And you're right. They introduce sexual terms into things. You know, I've been a gun owner for I don't know how long, and you know, I mean, even as a kid, you know, I had a BB rifle, and I never, until I you know, saw these quote unquote progressives insulting us, thought about a gun in terms of sexual terms. And now of course, we have Merkley's Law, which basically says that in any given conversation with an anti, it's just a matter of time before they will get to making comparisons about you have a gun because you're inadequate in your physical endowments. There is the term ammosexuals to refer to us as if we have some kind of fetish. And again, you know, it's kind of funny that for the so-called progressives who, on the one hand, want to talk about sexual tolerance for all alternatives, that they use sexual pejoratives as a way to attack people that they want to destroy, really. And so, again, it just shows the absolute hypocrisy of these people. Shannon Watts, you know, saying, well, you know, open carry is responsible for it. She's not for concealed carry either. And when concealed carry was gaining ground, that same faction was talking about blood on the streets and Dodge City over fender benders. None of that happened either. They're liars, Bill. They're liars.
Of course they are. Of course they are. We're coming up on the last break. One thing, maybe we ought to approach this and try to be ammosexuals and try to gain acceptance along with the whole LGBT movement. We could try to ride in on Caitlyn Jenner's coattails or dress hem. I guess it would be dress hem. Is that right? Dress tail?
Well, you know, when we come back,
I'm just trying to think out of the box here. That's all.
When we come back after the break, I'll tell you what happened to me when I tried that approach.
Got me thinking about dominatrix.
Okay. The more you know Gene, David, the more you get to know Gene.
Well, that's them.
That's just not. That's not even like an eye opener for me.
Well, I'm hearing the guy's into leather, so I mean, you know, let's talk.
He does a lot of stitching on his own. We'll be right back. Gene Higdon in studio, David Codrea on the phone on a Monday. This is Lock and Load. Now, you go ahead and tell me what you were going to tell me as we try to take this one down in flames here.
Yeah, this one will take a little bit because it's got some background to it. But you were talking, Bill, about using the way the left attacks us using sexual terms and maybe adopting that and kind of like almost like a jiu-jitsu, using their momentum against them.
Right.
And several years back, it was 2004, I wrote an open letter to the mayor of San Francisco, Superior Court judge, and the chief of police because they were authorizing city employees to perform gay marriages in violation of California law. Now, my letter was not an attack or a judgment or anything on that issue. It was simply that they were disregarding a law that they opposed. That was the extent of what I wrote them about. And so I said that basically that leaves me with an interesting dilemma because I also belong to a group that is forced by social prejudices to keep a low profile, oftentimes to hide my choices and practices, you know, lest I suffer disapproval and ultimately persecution. I'm a gun owner, and I live a gun owner lifestyle. I don't know if I was born with a tendency to be that way or if it was an acquired disposition. All I know is I don't see why I should be forced to change Truth be known, I like owning guns, and I'm happy with who I am. I hope I suffer no repercussions by coming out of the safe, but I just can't hide the truth any longer. And I went on to just hypothesize. I said, you guys have shown progressive thinking, and so just tolerance for what the majority condemns. So I was thinking of coming up to San Francisco and exercising my right to keep and bear arms, maybe showing up at City Hall with a state-banned AR-15 and a couple 30-round magazines, and also carrying several concealed pistols without a permit. Yes, I know it will be a violation of California laws, but you've shown you're willing to disregard those when it serves your goals. And because I'm a peaceable citizen, and went on, and basically what I said was, can I count on your support, or will you arrest me if I do that? Now, nowhere did I threaten to actually do that. I'm saying, what if I did that? Would you arrest me, or would you extend the same tolerance you've shown for laws that you want to disregard? And the whole intent of that exercise was just to show hypocrisy. What this resulted in was not one but two black and whites showing up at my house, scaring the hell out of my wife, wanting to know where I was. And finally, I get a call from a San Francisco detective. They've got a criminal investigation going on, and typically I tell people, don't talk to the police. Okay? In this particular case, I felt that I could handle things because I knew that I was not guilty of making any threats or violating things. I was extremely careful with the way I worded things. It was everything that was out there was already public record anyway, and I didn't want them showing up at my place of work and dragging my management into it and causing that kind of an embarrassment. I had always made a real compartmentalized care in terms of keeping one part of my life separated from the other, because that's a professional obligation you have when you accept employment with someone else. And so I talked to this guy and basically convinced him, and he understood what I was doing, but he was obligated to go ahead and investigate things. But this just shows you the hypocrisy of things, that just merely pointing that hypocrisy out and asking, you have this chilling effect on free speech to where you have squad cars showing up at your home and a detective calling you up demanding to know if, in fact, you're going to be coming up and causing any problems. And, it just, I think it's a good object lesson. These people will obey and enforce the laws that advance their agenda. If anything doesn't, they will come down on it as hard as they possibly can.
One of the things that I take encouragement from, what happened in Colorado, that was the grassroots. That was not money. It wasn't the NRA. It wasn't GOA. It was people of Colorado that did what they did in Colorado. Cuomo is fighting tooth and nail the registration data dump that everybody wants to know about in New York as to who defied it versus who actually complied with it. As is, we know in Connecticut there's not a whole lot of compliance with that as well. There are people in the United States, David, that are unafraid to do exactly what you and I think needs to be done.
I hope that there is enough of a critical mass to keep stupid stuff from happening, because I think the last thing anyone who's sane wants is to see things expand and to have to be forced with the dilemma of what am I personally going to do when this comes to my doorstep, and now it's time for the rubber to meet the road. And I think that just as arms in private hands deter individual aggressors, I think arms in the hands of the people cause those who would abuse the rights of those people to think twice about it and to think very hard about the repercussions and the personal accountability that will be visited on them should they be foolish enough to try. Now, it gets ultimately to what the founders understood, that the Second Amendment was an insurance policy against tyranny, foreign and domestic, and we have to be able to accept that without thinking that anyone who would even broach such a subject is equivalent to an ISIS terrorist.
Those that get out there and want a kindler, gentler conversation, I wonder about them, because they always seem to be coming out against people that I admire. And those that do that, they all seem to have a one common denominator that I'm not going to name names or anything, but a lot of times it's all about money. They're trying to look better or right because there might be some money involved in it if it drives more people to them. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people that are primarily interested in filling rice bowls. And again, it's like you have to understand that to run a large organization is expensive. And I know just from little things I've done to try to recruit support from people, how sometimes it is like pulling teeth. And so you have to sometimes have these mass mailers that go out, which most of us, just find offensive and unceasing and all that. But the bottom line is it seems to work. And I wish I were smart enough to think of another way to motivate gun owners to stop being just consumers of information, that your obligation extends beyond just leaving a comment under a blog post. How about if you find something that resonates with you and that you get value from, that you take it on yourself to be a force multiplier and share that? Maybe a lot of this incessant fundraising motivation would go away if gun owners would stop looking to be led and admit that we have to be the leaders. This is truly an egalitarian movement. That's what the Right to Keep and Bear Arms is all about. It's about egalitarian power sharing. This is something that the quote-unquote progressives say they're all about, but ultimately every day for them is opposite day, and what they want, again, is the unchallengeable monolith state. And so, you folks listening to this right now, tell somebody about this radio program. Let's get them on it too. Let's get Bill's radio program multiplied, by a factor of 10, and then next week a factor of 10 out of that. If you like my writing, do the same thing. How about instead of sending a donation, just do something real simple that we all can do and we all can afford? Share a link. Become a force multiplier.
I'm Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America, and I want to invite you to join the Second Amendment movement with Gun Owners of America, the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. Take action by becoming a GOA member today by going to gunowners.org. Gun Owners members receive the GOA newsletter, fact sheets, alerts, certificates, and more. But there's more to joining GOA than just a list of member benefits. The united voice of GOA members has been successful in defeating restrictive legislation designed to disarm our population. GOA has helped to get strong constitutional members of Congress like Senator Ted Cruz elected. And with your help, GOA will continue to successfully defend the rights of gun owners in the courts. Participate in our efforts to restore and preserve the nation's right to keep and bear arms. All contributions to our lobbying efforts are used exclusively to support or oppose firearms legislation. Join online at gunowners.org.